Are you trying to convince someone of a great idea? Or maybe you want to get your team on board with the next project. Or maybe you're trying to sell your user on the vision you have in store for them. All of these can be shared through a PowerPoint or some other means. But if you tell a story, you will bring them along on the journey, create a compelling idea, and get them engaged. And today I'm going to share with you 3 compelling tips and give you a free downloadable tool to use next on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Well, hi, I'm Liz, the Project Skills Mentor, and today we're talking all about storytelling. Storytelling is the core of any kind of communication, and especially when you want to engage and compel people to action. Tip number 1, visualize the why, the who, and the what. Start with your why. Why do you want to tell this story? Why would your audience want to hear this story? And in this worksheet, I highlight some of those points. Figuring out the who is really important. Who you're talking to and who is your hero in the story. A lot of times people think the who is them, but it's not. It's your audience. The who is your audience. So great stories tell the story of a hero, but allow the audience to take that journey with them. So think about E.T., a great movie many of you probably have seen. In that movie, we not only see the movie from the perspective of both E.T. and the little boy, but we actually sometimes get shots of what they are seeing. This is an example of storytelling heroes where we are allowed to become that hero. The next is the what. So what are you going to tell? What is your main message? And you need to figure this out early on. This creates your story arc, which we're going to get into right now on tip 2. So tip 2 is map out the how. So how are you going to tell your story? And we start with point 1 here, the story arc. We need to understand the status quo, and many stories you'll see start with this, the concept of what is the day in the life for our current hero. Then they're faced with a challenge, something happens, and at the end of the story we see transformation. The story becomes one of transformation when the hero becomes something new. And let me give you a little example of that. SHREK, the animated movie about an ogre who lives in his own swamp, doesn't want to be around people, challenged by the change when this prince kicks all the fairy creatures out of their homes and into our hero's swamp. What does he do? Confronts the prince, takes a journey, has a lot of confrontation and obstacles, and overcomes all of that to become the center of his new universe where he's got friends and relationships and family, and he is now not alone. That is his transformation. And we can see that arc in every story, whether it's a business story, idea generation, user journey story. These arcs exist. Stories of a business or technical nature need to also create trust to the audience. So you're going to have to include data, visuals, or other means of sharing facts and building that trust. Spending time going through how you're going to create trust, context, and content that is meaningful and engaging to your audience is really important. This editing process cannot be skipped. Once you've created a draft, you want to check the content, review the pacing, make sure it's understandable, and keep the story sharp and clear. Why? It's shown that when people are learning something new or hearing something new, they have about 15 minutes of concentration time, and that's it. And in fact, if you're trying to bring someone into your idea, you've got maybe 15 seconds to actually pique their interest enough that they'll spend that 15 minutes with you. Next, you're going to think about how to deliver for impact. Are you giving a live speech in front of a small audience? Maybe it's a story you'll only share with one person, such as your boss, to describe that great new idea you have. Or maybe it's a broad story that you'll be sharing again and again to different customers or different target groups. Understanding how you're going to actually tell that story and what form you're going to tell that story in is really important for understanding how the story will relate to the audience in the moment you tell it. And the final part to this whole process is what I call rinse and repeat, which means doing it a lot makes you better at it. In doing that, I'm going to actually take you through a storyboard and show you how I do it. And let's see how that works. But first, let me give you tip number 3. Tip number 3 is create the storyboard. A storyboard can be enough of an outline so you can speak extemporaneously or from the head so that you don't have to read a script. And that's really helpful to keep your story alive, especially because most of the time a story has a point of passion for you. You want to tell this story and you want to use your own words in the moment. And that makes it feel more alive for the audience. So a storyboard might actually be where you end with story preparation. Just note those high points, those cue points, and where you want to show a fact or a data set. In my blog, I have an example document that I'm going to take you through now, and I have a free downloadable, which is a blank form you can use. You can get that on the link below. And even before I do my storyboard, there's one more thing I do, which is this. I document the hero backstory. So let me take you through this and see if I can tell a story using my own storyboard. So my storyboard goes like this. Meet Janice. She's a customer services representative at a big corporation, and her job is to help solve customer problems. And there are a lot of customer problems. Why? Because their systems don't work very well. They are not meeting the customer's needs, and so Janice has to constantly find workarounds, and she's good at this. And Janice likes being good at this because solving customer problems is her personal calling in life. She's found out lots of different ways to work around the systems and get her colleagues to help her to solve these customer problems, and the customers are always grateful. Janice feels great about that. And her managers think she does a great job too. But her managers also realize there's a systemic problem. These systems don't work and need to work for the future. They can't always depend on Janice being there. And the more problems they have with customers, the longer that queue time is for Janice to get to their problems and solve them. So one day, Janice's managers bring on board a project management team to solve her problem. They're going to put in better systems. They're going to create new processes, and they're going to train everyone so that everybody can be as good as Janice is at her job. So what does Janice do faced with this new organizational paradigm where they want to get from her all the great ideas and tips and tricks she's used to create a great customer experience? And in fact, they want to change the systems and processes to mitigate all of those problems. Well, Janice tries to tank the project. In fact, she almost stops the project. She complains about the systems. She finds fault in all the process changes. So Janice becomes the block in all of it. And it's working. And this makes Janice happy because she thinks she's winning. So what becomes Janice's aha moment? It's not about the project. She's tanking that, and that's working fine for her. What does happen, though, is two things. Janice is in one of her customer calls where she's sorting out problems, and she's talked to this customer before. They know each other a little bit. And this customer says, "Hey, Janice, I don't have this problem with my other suppliers. I can do this all online myself." And that's kind of nice. I like that. Why isn't your company up to date with the way of working? And the second thing that happens, Janice knows she does a great job and she wants a promotion. But her managers say, "Hey, Janice, we don't really see a movement for you right now because you're too vital where you are." And Janice puts two and two together and realizes, I'm stuck. And my customers are beginning to cotton on to the fact that this is not the best way of working. Janice starts a transformation journey. She works with her colleagues and starts to build better systems using all the tips and tricks and methods she's used all these years, and figuring out how to create processes that she can train everyone on so everyone's as good as Janice. Now, this isn't necessarily easy for her, but through that process, she builds trust in herself and her ability to change, and others build trust in her. And seeing this process change has actually transformed not just Janice, but the entire department. So does this dream get realized? Yes, it does. Through this building of trust, processes, and great systems, not only are the customers more satisfied and happy, but also the customer service team is as well. And representatives only have to work on those outlying problems because most things work first time right, which is great for everyone. And what's the end transformation for Janice? She went from a person who was a star on their own to being the manager of the department because she helped everyone level up. And so that's my story. This is the idea of using this storyboard to create a flow to your story. And again, if I had data points, I'd put those in. So 35% of the customers now have to go to Janice, and in the future it's only 2%. So the team can really focus on what they need to do. So I hope you found these 3 techniques useful, figuring out your why, how, what, and who, creating a story arc and creating that sense of where you're getting that content, how you're bringing the pacing along, and also how you're going to present that content. how you'll build your story of your hero and then create a storyboard and then extemporaneously bring that story to life. I hope all of that's been helpful, and if you thought so too, please give it a like and consider subscribing because I have a lot more content like this on my channel. Also, leave a note below. I'd be very interested to hear in your comments what you think of the storyboarding process. Does it work for you? And what story do you want to tell? And I hope to see you next time on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.